Petrified Blood has been in the game for a while. It is a tool that allows you to reserve up to 50% of your life. You don't have to, but below 50% of your life, it will mitigate some of the incoming damage. The problem is, due to the numbers, that this would actually make you more susceptible to one-shots. For that reason, I've kind of always stayed away from it. It also has a gem socket cost. However, with the new tools that we have in the game, there is now Life Recoup, which has been around for a couple leagues now. This allows you to recover some of your life after taking hit for the next 4 seconds, which, kind of offsets the Petrified Blood damage. And then the big tool that is brand new this league that really puts it over the edge for me, that actually makes it more interesting, is Progenesis, which is the new flask that drops from Uber Maven, designed by Ben, which mitigates an additional 25% multiplicative with Petrified Blood 40% of the incoming damage, and then does the same thing as Petrified Blood, where you recover that life over the next 4 seconds. The big key here is that by multiplying the effects of Petrified Blood with the Progenesis Flask, we are now able to take advantage of Petrified Blood without becoming more susceptible to one-shots, which is the main reason why I didn't like it in the past. In addition to that, by stacking as much Life Recoup as we can effectively heal after taking a hit more than the damage that we actually take over time. And then, because we are a spellcaster, we can take advantage of Pain Attunement on top of that, get a 30% more damage multiplier, so we can actually back off on some of our damage investment, get some more effective defense for the course of our actual playing the game, and just everything feels really, really good. It smooths out so much of the incoming spiky damage. I'm really loving this combination. And I wanted to take today to go over the math, why it works, how it works, and how you could put it together if you want to, see if it fits into your own build. So yeah, let's get right into it. All right, so just quickly showing what it is in game first before we get to the dry portion of this. We are using the Petrified Blood gem right here, which, as you can see, it's got the claw marks under my life. The life below 50% is now protected by Petrified Blood, which means that the incoming damage gets mitigated. 40% of that incoming damage below 50% is totally prevented. And then with the current level of the gem that I have right now, 76% of the damage that was mitigated will then be removed from my life over the next 4 seconds, which means, for all intents and purposes, we are actually taking less damage overall, even counting that damage removal. Now, as you can see, I have actually reserved some auras against my life. What this does is it enables me to then take advantage of Pain Attunement, a 30% more damage multiplier, which is obviously really big for a spell-based build. You can use Life Flask to go above that 50%, but since we want that Pain Attunement, we want to always be right at 50%, so that's active. Now, you'll notice the amount of life that I have is slightly higher than the amount that's reserved. This is very, very important. 49% reserved is perfect. We want to have a little bit of headroom there so that Leech will always be active. If we have 49% reserved, but Petrified Blood is kind of bumping up against that 50%, that 1% there gives us some headroom where Leech effects will not stop, which means that my Leech from Itziri's Promise, or if I'm using Doriani's Lesson on like an Elemental Jewel, we can take advantage of things like damage while leeching or anything like that. It's also really, really comfortable while you're fighting a boss and he's, phasing around and disappearing and everything. Your Leech will still be active. Walking over degens won't feel as bad. So you'll see that I have too much life actually to have it active. And to demonstrate how perfectly I have this tuned and like what that headroom is, you'll see that I have 2325 life right here. And then if I use a Life Flask, you'll see it'll go up to 2355. So I just have a little bit of there's that 1% difference right there, which is all that's needed to make sure that the Life Leech is always active. And then the big thing, as I said in the intro, that really kicks us over is using the Progenesis Flask. This means that 25% of life loss from damage occurs over 4 seconds. This is multiplicative. We'll go over the math in just a second, but this means that we are actually taking less than 50% damage on the initial hit, whereas traditionally we would actually be taking 60% because of, Petrified Blood only mitigates 40%, which would actually make you more susceptible to one-shots, which is why I didn't like it in the past. But stacked on top of the Flask, we're actually only taking 45% damage. We are actually tankier with the Flask and Petrified Blood than without, even though it says I only have 2,300 life. The effective numbers are actually as if I had 10% more life off of my max than sitting at 50%, because Progenesis and Petrified Blood are basically draining our life afterwards, and this is not damage over time. There is no way to directly mitigate this outside of some sort of recovery. I'm taking advantage of some life recoup. The really cool thing about life recoup is it's based on the initial amount of damage that you would have taken before the mitigation by Petrified Blood or Progenesis. We'll go over the math in a second. This allows us to basically straight up counter the life removal from the Progenesis and Petrified Blood very, very easily. And with more investment, we could actually turn this into a heal. So you actually heal damage based on getting a hit, which is obviously really, really cool. All right, so I just wanted to show that in game, but by combining Petrified Blood and Progenesis, we only take 45% of the damage on the initial hit. This is 100 times 0.75 for the Flask, times 0.6 for Petrified Blood. Life Leech and Regen are actually twice as strong, because since we're sitting at that lower life pool, but it's effectively like tankier against incoming hits, even versus our full life pool as if we weren't using this, something like 200 life regen is now similar to what would be like 400 life regen. Same thing with Life Leech. So if we are leech or regen based, it's actually really, really good for us. Like I said, we're using Life Recoup to mitigate that life removal effect. Now, this is actually like kind of mandatory. The thing is that life removal effect from Progenesis actually stacks with Petrified Blood in kind of a negative way. Normally, Petrified Blood says, 75% of that life loss prevented is lost over 4 seconds. Progenesis is just 100%. So it actually like stacks with Petrified Blood in kind of a negative way. And that's why we really want to have Life Recoup to like counter that and make it feel a lot better. Using these 3 tools at the same time is very important. I don't recommend just using Petrified Blood and Progenesis. I think the Life Recoup is basically mandatory to make this feel better than otherwise. If you don't have Life Recoup, you're gonna wanna just get more life anyway and probably not use the Flask. And then, as I said, really big thing is we can get a lot of life recoup. We could actually get 100% life recoup. So if we have that 100 incoming damage, we'll actually recuperate that full 100 damage over the next 4 seconds, but take less of that from the multipliers on Progenesis and Petrified Blood. And then, as I said, reserve less than 50% life to activate Pain Attunement and Overleech. The big thing here is, as I said, you want to be at that 50% life and not that 51% life. So when you first go into a map or you first start that boss encounter, you're going to have full life. But luckily, with this build, since I spend life to cast my spells, I'll immediately activate Pain Attunement, and I don't have to worry about like getting hit once just to have it active. So you're going to want some way to spend your life or, just deal with getting hit to be able to activate it. So luckily, the math here is a lot simpler than going over all the damage conversion in the build guide that I did last week. What is it and how does it work? So if we have 100 incoming damage, the 25% less from Progenesis and 40% less from Petrified Blood are multiplied together. If it was additive, obviously that would be absolutely broken, but they are just multiplicative with each other. So what that means is we take 100, we multiply it by 0.75, 25% less from the Flask, times 0.6, which is 40% less from Petrified Blood. And so we take 45 of that 100 damage immediately. So PB alone would be 60 damage taken. So normally, and this is why I didn't like it in the past, is Petrified Blood, if you were at 50% life, you would still take 60% of the damage right off the bat, which would just make you squishier, and then you have to mitigate the life removal, right? By multiplying them together, now we're actually only taking 45% of the incoming damage. It actually just makes us tankier, which is awesome. However, the life lost over the next 4 seconds from those two is additive. I'm pretty sure the life loss is additive. If it's not, then this is even stronger than I think it is. But for as much as I can understand, it is additive. So as I showed, 75% from the Petrified Blood will be removed over 4 seconds, and then 25% from the Progenesis will be removed. If you only had Petrified Blood, it'll only be 75%, and you don't have that additive additional 25. However, you'll be taking 60 damage on the initial hit. It's like mitigating more on the initial hit, but you're gonna have a bigger life removal afterwards by using the Flask. So that's why we want to go for life recoup. If you have 25% mitigated from the Flask and 25 recoup, it's like you just didn't take the damage initially. It puts it off, and then you're going to be regenerating the same amount of life that's removed from Progenesis. So the Flask alone is already incredible, right? If you can get 25 life recoup and just use the Flask, that is just 25% less damage taken. It's a free fortify. That alone, I was using that for the past couple days, I think is just mandatory if you can fit it into any build. Like, it just makes you 25% tankier. It's incredible. But this on top of it, I find really push it over the edge to making it so, as you saw in the intro, I can run 100% Delirious Beyond maps really, really easily. So with the math here, I have 30% life recoup with my 3 points on the passive tree, and this gives me negative 6.75 life recovered per second. So for all intents and purposes, I'm only taking 45% of the incoming damage, and then I have enough recovery with the recoup just to mitigate everything except for 6.75% of that each second for the next 4 seconds. And then since Vitality is like twice as strong since we're at half life, that will really, really counter it. And then since we're always on Overleech and the leech is always going, it's really, really powerful. And besides walking over like a really scary degen, which we'll get to in a second, degens are twice as strong, or a really, really big hit coming in, my character just hasn't died since I started using this tech. And it feels absolutely incredible. The nice thing on top of this is I get an additional aura and I get 30% more damage for the cost that I put into it. Full recipe, how do you activate this? How do you do this? You want to use Petrified Blood. You know, you have to reserve it. Petrified Blood is a 35% mana reservation, so it will cost some mana. However, then we can use Arrogant Support to reserve against our life. And as long as we reserve 49% or less of our life, then we're totally fine. So 2 gem sockets, and then we want to take Pain Attunement on the tree. We could do this with a Skin of the Lords. We could do this with a Sanctified Relic Invocation. And then I do strongly recommend taking the 20% Life Reservation Efficiency Mastery. All of your mana reservation efficiency does not go against Arrogance. This allowed me to reserve 2 auras very, very comfortably. I'm reserving Herald of Purity and Vitality right here, and it feels great. I've talked enough about the pros here. The cons, however, the degens are twice as effective, right? If you're taking 200 damage over time when you walk over a degen, this stuff only works against hits. So if you walk over 200 damage per second, you know, and you only have 2,000 life, that's 10% of your actual life pool every single second as you walk over that degen. So those will be extra scary. Be very careful about that. And then you are never on full life. Using damage on full life support or anything like that, you don't have access to that. But I feel like that's a pretty small con. All right, that's my presentation. This is just some really cool tech. You know, using Petrified Blood, stacking Recoup on top of that. This is stuff that's been around for a while, but I never really liked it in the past because it did make you significantly squishier against one-shots. And now with the new Progenesis Flask, and you can scale Progenesis with Flask Effect, you can make this way stronger. I did experiment with that a little bit. I am near some Flask Effect nodes. That's really good. You know, some people right now are using micro distillery belts, scaling as much Flask Effect as possible. Definitely do that if you want to make this even stronger, but I'm already happy enough with the way that it is. Now, I totally recognize this is an expensive flask. It looks like it's been very comfortably around 11 divines for a while. I bought mine for, I think, 8 divines about a week ago. Looks like the price is kind of going up a little bit, but considering how tanky all of this together makes you, I think it is a very wise investment and it feels really good. All right, anyway, just wanted to share some tech with you guys that I had a lot of fun playing around with. And I'm going to go get ready for the stream and be really tanky and do 100% Delirious maps. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Goodbye.